Um, so
Right.
here we go. President of Fairchild, chairman of the board at Mahita. And what I put in there is you could also be confused as a full-time bodybuilder. Van Clarkson, thank you for joining Warehouse Chat.
Dad bod bodybuilder.
Dad bod bodybuilder. Maybe
Yeah.
that's changed since the last time I saw you, but
No, I think I'm actually a little leaner, I think, but I still think I got a little bit of a dad bod. Oh,
yeah,
well.
yeah,
I think the chicks dig that now, don't they?
yeah. I just saw something about that said basically it was that's just what the guys are saying. All the ladies, they don't actually think that. Like if you place a guy with a six pack right there, and then you place a dad bod there, I don't know. I think people are just saying that.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah. So chairman of the board at Mahita, I wanted to, one of the last guests we had on was Nate Story, who's, he's heading up the convention portion of it. You're chairman of the board. So just wanted to talk through Mahita to start, just kind of explaining to everybody what is Mahita. And I think the misconception of when I first got into the industry, which was right when you got on the board, was, it's only for the executive level, people at different material handling companies, which that's not the case. Just wanted, kind of you to talk through that.
Yeah. So when Mahita started, it was really a group of forklift dealers that felt like, and it was strangely enough, they almost felt like they needed to unionize because they felt like they were being taken advantage of by manufacturers. Fast forward to today, manufacturers are on our board of advisors, and there's a very strong partnership with the manufacturers. Matter of fact, we probably wouldn't survive without them. The membership, Mahita stands for Material Handling Equipment Distributors Association. But we've got three distinct categories. So you've got the forklift primary dealers, but I don't know that there's that many just forklift dealers left in the country. They've all kind of diversified into other areas of material handling, whether it be storage and handling or systems integration. Matter of fact, more than half of our membership is non-forklift primary distributors. So, the trend of the industry is automation, so that makes a lot of sense. Whether it be an automated forklift or it be automated conveyor, vertical storage carousels, anything that can do the job of people, because there's just not enough people to do those jobs. People are buying it today. I mean, the ROI is there. So, Mahita has, I think, the last numbers I saw is somewhere in like mid 600s in total membership companies. But there's involvement with women in industry, emerging leaders. There's a Mahita Net group for HR, for marketing professionals, for sales professionals, for CFOs. So it's pretty much got its tentacles in all areas of the companies. There'd be certainly a lot more member companies, but consolidation is a big trend in our industry. So you're either buying or you're selling. We have a lot more larger companies than we used to have. I think the average has gone from, that $5 to $10 million dealer 20 years ago to that $40 million dealer today. And, many of the members are north of $1 billion. So it's changed, it's evolved. Our board is made up of, a number of forklift primary dealers, a number of storage and handling, a number of systems integrators. And then we have, as I mentioned, manufacturers on the manufacturers board of advisors.
One of the things we talked about was just, a lot of people, especially coming into the industry, it's like, yes, we're all, we all, and I'm speaking as, you're talking about forklift companies, system integrators, like we all compete with each other, but it is surprising once you get in the same room with all like-minded or people in the same industry, how people will actually come together and help each other out, where it is cutthroat. When you're in on a deal and you're up against another forklift company, like you want to beat them, but when you're all out at the convention or you're out at, whatever meeting, like you actually can come together and help, grow the industry. And did that surprise you? I guess, I mean, no, because you're a part of that, like you're part of the reason why that is the way it is. So,
well, I got on the board because of one of our larger competitors in this market, Jerry Weidman, suggested I get on the board. We've always had a good relationship. I've never been one of those people that have looked at and said, I should hate my enemy. I focus on what we are doing. I don't focus on what they're doing. And if it's good for the industry, it's good for all of us. So it's never been, I'm going to go try and, screw this guy or do that. Yeah, you're going to compete to the best of your ability. And if you're involved in the industry, you know where the industry is heading. I mean,
Yep.
it's not like you need to replicate exactly what they're doing. Let's work on what we can do. Let's focus on us, making us better. They're going to do what they're going to do. And there's a lot of good competitors out there. But I've got a lot of, I would say, good friends and people that I have a ton of respect for that are, that work for, competitive forklift OEMs and even in our market here. That doesn't mean that we don't want to beat them, but, I think good competition makes us all better.
Yep. No, it's hard to have long-term success if you're, one of those that has a scarcity mindset.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
there's I'd say a lot of people when they first get into the industry, that's kind of the thought, I got to win every single deal. It's like, yes, of course you want to win every single deal,
Sure.
but it's not the
Yeah.
only deal that's out there.
No, that's right. That's right.
So how did you get into the industry? Because that was the first, I mean, this industry is essentially the first, you've been here the whole time.
Yeah.
So kind of tell us your story of how you got into it.
Well, geez, when I graduated from college, I got into finance for construction equipment OEM. So I've pretty much always been either in construction or material handling, but I'd say the first half of my working career was primarily construction and frankly on the finance side of it. I got into material handling through an OEM, Heister Yale Group. Started out in finance with them, went into fleet management, then went into the sales and marketing side for them. And then I've been at this dealership now for about 10 and a half years. So Fairchild equipment. So it was just I guess a natural transition. I was working for a bank finance arm at the time that was acquired by another bank, and they wanted to move me someplace else. And I just got married, and I didn't feel like uprooting and moving my new bride to Arizona. Although this time of year, I kind of wonder why I didn't. So I answered an ad for Heister Yale Group needing a finance rep, and kind of that's what launched me into this into this industry.
Issue.
Well, I said issue because this something popped up on the screen here and said an issue with this, but I shouldn't read that. Note to self.
No. So I'm assuming, Fairchild, Heister Yale dealer, that's kind of how the path to Fairchild was, from the relationships that were built, through the dealer network.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. One of the things too that I wanted to get your take on is there's a lot of companies, a lot of people that sell forklifts, and it's, like most of the things that we do, it's pretty cutthroat, I mean, people, and there's no way to hide. There's no way to hide who your customers are, especially when you sell forklifts, because all you got to do is just walk in and you see the Heister yellow. So you know exactly who's in there.
Yeah.
So just talk through like the importance of relationships, with your customers. Cause I know, your biggest customers, those are some of the people that you have the best relationships with.
Oh yeah. 100%. 100%. I think relationships is that some people would argue that it's somewhat of a transactional business. And I think there are some customers that look at it that way. But there are still plenty of customers out there where relationship matters. They just want to know if they've got a problem, you're gonna pick up the phone, you're gonna fix it for them, and that's kind of one of our core values with customers for life is, hey, we're humans, trucks are gonna break, people are gonna make mistakes, but we will always fix it. I mean, tell us about it so we know and we'll fix it. So, and oftentimes, if you've had an issue that you've overcome, you have a stronger relationship on the other end than if you'd never had one before. So,
no, that's one of the things. I mean, that's what I learned, working, for you is that's what it was. It's like you don't look forward to mistakes, but you look forward to the opportunity that could come out of it.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, and I look back at too, like, I mean, obviously I'm not selling forklifts anymore, but some of the best customers, some of the best, the biggest projects we had were when something, when shit hit the fan and we didn't go anywhere. We stayed put until the problem was solved. And it's definitely a different perspective, once you go through that once, and then you realize like, Most
Okay.
people don't do that.
Right.
So
Yeah. You definitely can't just sell something and run. I mean, you've got to stand behind it, and not just stand behind it for the first 30, 60, 90 days. You got to stand behind it until it's time to get something new, you
yep,
know?
yep.
Um,
And
and
forklifts break, right? Forklifts break. So if you're going in there saying, we're
yeah,
perfect,
yeah,
you're just waiting for problems.
there's the forklifts break, the drivers change, they crash into things. It's pretty much everything we sell needs service, which, that's a good thing for us, but it's also a good thing if you're doing a good job with your customers and keeping, their service records and taking care of their equipment. They're not going to have a major failure that's going to put them out for, that time is money in that
Yep.
regard. So
Yep.
a lot of times you got a paper roll truck down or a truck that's critical. They're stuck. They can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I guess because what you've been at Fairchild for 10,
yeah,
10
it
years?
was 10 years. I was 10 years. Yeah. January 1st, 10
So
years.
what's the growth from, how has that been from day one to where you guys are? Because I know it's been
Yeah.
exponential.
Yeah. I want to say when I first joined, it was roughly about a $48 million business, and through various acquisitions and expansion and growth and diversification of lines, if you add up all of the businesses that fall under Fairchild, we have some separate, obviously, entities. We're roughly 200 million today, so it's, I guess, quadrupled or more than quadrupled, and we're just getting started.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think that you kind of answered the question I was just about to ask, is what's the driving force behind that? And I think it's just what you just said right there. It's you're not content. I mean, you can be happy with what's going on, but never satisfied. But I guess what's been the driving factor behind all that?
well, I mean, we've got a leadership team that's all, pulling in the same direction. Our CEO, Chad, is 9 years younger than I am. He's got a lot of years left to work, and he's very ambitious in trying to grow this business as well. I'm only 51. I have 4 children that cost a lot of money. I'll be working for a while too, so we might as well make the best of this. And I'll be around another 12 to 15 years. And frankly, I don't ever want to retire. I want to be in this industry on boards or whatever.
Yep.
I don't think I could ever retire. I think I'd go nuts.
Yeah.
So,
No, I think you'd go nuts too.
yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I learned from you is just about making mistakes. Like
Yeah.
you weren't straightforwardly saying, "Hey, make mistakes all the time," but you welcomed them when they came, as long as you learned from them, and you told
Yeah.
us that all the time.
Yeah.
From have you always thought that way, or did you learn that from somebody?
I learned that over time. There's always, I remember I went to military high school because I was told I needed direction. And there were some leaders there that would screw up, but they felt like it was showing weakness and they frankly just lost all credibility. And there's some of the better leaders at the academy, and frankly, some of the better people that I've worked for in my time have been open about, yeah, I screwed that up. All right, let's redirect. We're going to record. We're going to take a different path. That's my fault. That's on me. And frankly, you have a lot of respect for them because they're real. And that's just one of the things I think I've learned over time is, leaders aren't perfect. Leaders make mistakes. And if, they're not willing to own their mistakes, then nobody that works for them is going to be willing to go out on a limb and try something.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to want to make it.
Yeah.
So, I've always felt like the cost of indecision is worse than making the wrong decision.
Yep.
So
that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah. I guess we talk about those types of leaders. I'm assuming those guys, those people were mentors to you. And that's one of the things that I like about this is like, it's an opportunity for, you to, yes, you can send a text message every couple years or you talk to them and it's just like you say thank you, but to do it on this platform is kind of unique. And I guess who was that for you?
Oh, gosh, I was thinking about that. I've always been kind of a remora. I would just latch on to people that I thought were really good, and I tried to learn as much as I could from them. But I guess I got to start with my dad. My dad, Paul Clarkson, worked really, really hard, a lot of long hours. Definitely he was out the door before I was up every morning, and he'd come home around 6:30 at night. I kind of wished he would have been around a little bit more to see more sporting events and things like that. But he was traveling and busting his butt for our family. And the other thing he did really well was he would always say, Van, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, and I don't have a whole lot of talents, but I can network. I can pull people together. So I learned early on that networking is really, really important. Not what you know, it's who you know, right? Yep. Then in college, obviously my football coach, my first football coach in college, Paul Connor, my position coach, Jim Miller, who's still the athletic director at what I like to say the Harvard of the Midwest. Actually, no, not Harvard anymore. The Princeton of the Midwest, North Central College. He's the athletic director there. Jim Miller, Coach Gora. These are all men that you're entering a new phase of your life, and then I had an advisor there that was just phenomenal. He was a business professor named Ken Campbell, and whenever I needed to chat, he was a baseball player in college. He'd throw me a glove and we'd just go out and play catch. And we'd talk about school, life, girls, whatever. It was really fortunate to have those men in my life. And then when I first got into the workforce, that was my first real, white collar job, I guess you could say.
Yep.
Guys like Joel Rob at Komatsu America, it was Komatsu Dresser Financial then, but Joel Robinson, Ed Powers, Tim Trippus,
Tim Trippus,
Rich Sopek, and then Ken Van Zanten. He was actually a peer of mine, but he was 3 or 4 years older. I really looked up to him. He was really good at what he did, and really tried to learn a lot from him. And then when I first got into the material handling industry, my first boss was Steve Johnson, and the guy was probably the most empathetic guy. I mean, he wouldn't like. There's a difference between empathy and sympathy. I mean, he really understood, but he didn't get emotional about it. So he really understood where you were coming from. He heard you. If you made a great point, he would acknowledge it. He was really good. My next boss was Paul LaRoya. He was the exact opposite. But he was what I would call the 1 minute manager. 1 minute, he give you 1 minute compliments, 1 minute reprimands, and then he'd just forget it. And what I learned from him is if you're getting in somebody for making a mistake, get over it. Just, it's the rearview mirror. Let's fix it and move on. And I learned to, because he was such a different style of leadership, I really learned to respect him. I didn't like it at first, but I really learned to respect him, and I learned a lot because he pulled me out of the finance side and got me into the truck side. And I really did end up learning a lot from him and have a lot of appreciation for him. And then his boss was a guy named Colin Wilson, and I got to know him really well, and he really grew, was instrumental in the growth of HYG over the years. He's since retired, happily retired. I saw him at Pinehurst last year.
Okay, so probably very happy.
Yeah, he's got a phenomenal place down in St. Pete that he's loving life. So wish him the best. And then even early, I'd never been on a board before, so joining the Mahita board, I think, is 8 years ago. There were some really good chairmen of the boards that I learned from early on, like Scott Lee, Mark Milovich, Ted Springer, Mike Vaughn, Mike Wall. They were the chairman the first several years, and I kind of learned how. And frankly, Liz Richards, who just retired, kind of an industry legend, really, watching how she led and how she would run a board meeting was eye-opening, and learned a lot from her. And then, of course, as a dealer principal, I've had the opportunity. I'm going to miss so many names here, but
hey, it's not the Academy Awards, but
I know, but these are all people that I've learned from, and I think they're contributed to my style, like Joe
Yeah.
Brazino, Mike Doherty, Chris Weddle, Duncan Murphy, Alan Hammersley, Sandy McKinnon, but of course, last but certainly not least, Gary Fairchild. He is he's been phenomenal to work for and get to know. He's probably the single best salesman I've ever been around in my life, and one of the most likable people. Networks, like my father, he's a tremendous networker. Um, I mean, I learned so much about walking in on a first time meeting a customer with him. He makes it seem so natural, and it's like within 5 to 10 minutes, it's like he's best friends with the guy on the other side of the table,
Yeah.
even if he's just taking the meeting for, to do his friend a favor or something. By the end of it, Gary has turned them. He's just got a gift
Yeah.
for that. And he also, I will tell you, he also, if you were to make a mistake and he was going to get on you, when he's done, he's done.
Yep.
I mean, 5 minutes later, he'll come in and say, "Hey, you want to go to the Packer game?" And I'd be like, "I'm not over it yet. What are you doing?" But
Yep.
he's got that. It's been truly, he's pretty much retired now and has been for a few years. Is a chairman of the board of being the grandfather of the year. That's what his primary focus is on. But yeah, I've learned a lot over the last 10 years, and even before when I worked with him previously from him.
Yep. No, and I obviously got to see that firsthand too.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, as me coming in, never having a real job before, it's like you don't even understand how you can get to that point, where you're just so comfortable walking into any room. And I think it goes back to the whole, he never seemed, like he never had that scarcity mindset. Like it was okay. Like he wants to win every deal,
Absolutely.
but it's not like this, uncomfortable sense of urgency. Like we need, we have to win this deal. Otherwise, the company folds,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of people that give off that energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Not him. I used to love putting together deals with him because it was truly, I think you remember Dan Van der Wettering.
Yeah,
And
no, I was with him the first, 6 months. I mean, that was awesome. And then
yeah,
he really did retire. And
yeah.
I was upset.
Well, getting in a war room with them, talking about a new customer or a new deal with the
Yep.
two of them, it was magic. It was really cool to see. So, yeah, we've had some, really good people that have, in my 10 years, I've had the opportunity to work with here and have retired, and we still keep in touch, obviously, but they're happily retired. I hope to meet them someday.
Does Dan V still come around? I haven't seen him in a long time.
I saw him at Ken Charbonneau's retirement party.
Okay.
Yeah, he looks great.
Yeah.
He's having a ball, fishing,
Yep.
playing golf, Corvette Club. Yeah.
Yep. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
At what point, because you grow up, you're in the industry, you're growing the whole time, you have mentors. At what point did you feel like you made that switch to, would that be mentee to mentor? Because obviously you were that for me.
Aw.
There you go. That's the only compliment that I can give out. But obviously I learned a lot. But at what point did that switch for you? I mean, was it once you went to Fairchild, or did you kind of feel that way when that's what I was thinking. I just didn't know if it was when you were at Heister, if you kind of had the same role.
I would say at Heister, I was still learning. And then I did a stint with JCB in Savannah, and there I felt like I was still developing. I just felt like in the first couple of years of being here, of course, we had some pretty big acquisitions. There was a lot going on, moving into new buildings and buying dealerships. It was a blast, but you kind of had to learn on the fly. And I would say it's probably been in the last 10 years or so.
Yeah. No, and I'd say I understand more of where you were coming from now than I did then, because obviously the spot that I'm in now, and it's just, your door was always open for the most part until if I was coming in for like the fourth or fifth time of the day and you shut the door, like I understand now.
Yeah.
Like I do get that. So, no,
well,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's about, I'll tell you that and you and I were talking about this the last time we were together, where it's really taken a switch for you is when you take more satisfaction in watching other people succeed, and people that work for you have success than your own. You
Yep.
know, I have more gratification effectively being the coach than the player.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and we were just talking about that now. We have 20 between all of our company. We have 20 people now, and it's
Mhm.
just it's kind of crazy, I mean,
Yeah,
the first person we bring on, it's like it just completely changes things.
yeah,
They trust you. They're relying on you. It's
yeah.
to pay their bills, to come to a place where there's
Hmm.
positive energy and they can go home with the same amount of energy, and it's they're
Yeah,
relying on you to support their family. It's just it's
yeah,
hard to explain until you're actually in that spot, because I never felt that when I was at Fairchild, because I never was a
yeah,
manager. I never had to lead people before.
yeah, yeah.
um
Oh, it's definitely different, and you're still learning. You'll always be learning.
oh
You
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
because I mean, every person you hire is unique. They're an individual. They have their own strengths and weaknesses. While it's important to be consistent, it's also important to not try to make all these people into you. You
Yep.
know,
Yep. One of
so
the things I stole from you, which I had to write this down because I just realized it, but giving people books. I remember you gave me the first 90 days. I read
yeah,
that
yeah,
before starting. You
yeah,
gave me Living with the Seal.
yeah,
Uh, did you just kind of do that naturally? For me, it was kind of, we all have the same three books that we read. Every person that
yeah,
starts here reads the same three books, and it's just, I was hesitant starting it because I didn't know, hey, is this a normal thing to do? I mean, the answer is no, because most companies don't do that.
yeah. Right, right.
But I got it from you, because that's what it was when I first started.
Well, you're investing in your employees to see them succeed, and if it's something that you took and read it and felt like, hey, I'm better for it,
Hmm.
absolutely.
Yep.
You want what's
Yep.
best for them. So,
Yeah, Living with the Seal is the third book. I think it just kind of sums everything up, and
mhm.
it just shows what you're capable of a lot more than you think.
Than you think you are. Absolutely. It's what does he say in the book? It's like when you think
40%.
you're maxed out, you're really only at like
Yeah,
40%.
40%. Yep.
Yeah.
And that was a while ago
Yeah.
when you gave me that one, and Goggins has blown up since then. But
Yeah.
um
I know he canceled and we had him scheduled for YPO to
oh
come and
really?
speak, and he blew up in the interim.
No.
And I think he realized he could get a gig for a heck of a lot more than what.
100 times more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he'd been on, I think, Rogan in the previous couple of months. So I think he's like, yeah. Remember what my fee was before?
Yeah.
At a zero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe two. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
One of the other things, and selfishly, I always want to ask the question, but you know, it's always better to learn from other people's mistakes.
Right.
What lessons along the way, have you learned that you share with people that may not have the same amount of experience in the industry?
Well, we talked about one. Don't be afraid to admit failure. Frankly, don't be afraid of failure because, frankly, failure is learning. You're not
Yep.
going to get better if you don't screw up a few times. Um, Stay engaged, particularly with your reports. Just because you don't hear issues doesn't mean they don't exist. Um, One of the things I started to do is and this has been in the last couple of years, and I can't remember. I don't know if it was somebody in Mahita that mentioned this, and I'm like, oh, that's great. I block time every week. Now you can call me. My door's always open. You can call me if you've got any issues. But this hour or half an hour, depending upon the person, whatever they want, is yours. This is just what you want to talk about. And some of the guys want to talk about the fish they caught over the weekend. Others want to talk about the issue they've got with a customer or whatever it is. But it's their time.
Yep.
And by the end of that, if there's something bothering them, you're going to know. And if you know about it, you can address it. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's, hey, that sounds like it's more your issue than anybody else's. And they just need to hear that.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's just they want to be heard. They just want to be listened to. They don't want you to solve the problem.
Yeah.
They just want to be heard.
Well, it's so easy to just have 3, 4, 5 months go by and you don't have that conversation because things
Yeah.
are moving at such a rapid pace. And
Yeah. 100%. Now, a lot of the people that report to me, we don't report out of the same office, so I don't see them face to face. So, we set up Teams meetings. It's an hour once a week. If they're on vacation, they just let me know, but we don't do it that week. Or if they can't do it that week, that's fine. Just give me a heads up.
yep,
Vice versa. If I'm in a meeting, I always reschedule it.
yep,
If I can't do it, we'll do it tomorrow. But I think it's important that you do that. Work-life balance. For the longest time, I was horrible at that. I think I've improved at that. And frankly, I mean for everybody, but if I don't show it,
yep,
nobody else is going to do it. So I was one of those guys that felt like I needed to be the first in the office and the last one to leave every day. And I think my family suffered for it. That's another thing Gary Fairchild forced on me. I mean, he's like, look, if you aren't coaching your kids' teams, I will personally kick your ass. So my kids didn't like it very much because apparently they didn't like it when Dad coached. They don't play any of the sports anymore that I coached them in. But I encourage everybody to do that. And frankly, if I see somebody is just at their wits' end, take a day.
yep,
Just take a day. Constantly set goals for yourself and put it somewhere every day where you can see it. And mine's on my bathroom mirror. So when I get up in the morning, I look at them every day. And, if I achieve them, I knock that one off. I add one to it. You got to constantly be doing that. And I mean, even as like a 75-year-old person, if you don't have purpose,
yep,
goals, I mean, I think that's when people just shrivel up and die. You got to have
right,
something. You got to be working for something.
yep,
And so that's important. Treat people the way you want to be treated. The golden rule, right? That doesn't mean, like I said before, that doesn't mean turn them into you. I mean, they're their own individual, but just think, how would I want to be treated in this thing? And obviously that's how you have to lead that way. We talked about this earlier too. Focus on what you can control. Focus on you. Don't focus on the competition. Don't focus on this. Focus on what you can control. Right.
yep.
Oh God, I could go on forever.
I like that one though. I mean, focus on what you can. A lot of it, and a lot of this is so simple, but it's not easy. I mean,
No.
like focus on what you can control. I mean, that's what we talk about here when you first start. We use the first 90 days of like,
Mhm.
I don't expect you to sell anything, but what I do expect is, hey, we have these books that you read. You
Mhm.
have a positive attitude and mindset that you can show up.
Mhm.
Working out. You can
Mhm.
control that. And it's like, okay, you do that all for the first 90 days, like good
Mhm.
things will happen.
Yep.
Obviously you can't stop, but it's like, yeah, let's do everything within our control. You
Yes.
set your goals based around things that are within your control. And
Right.
then you just let I guess, cards fall where they, where they may, or where they lay, or whatever that
Yeah.
is,
Yeah. I always, you bring up a good point. That's why I work out in the morning. That's something that it's easy to accomplish. Well, it's not always easy, but I
Yeah.
mean, once you've accomplished that, all right, now I've accomplished something. Get into the office, knock out some of the easier things first, start stacking wins.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then
You hear
get
so
to,
many people talking like that. And
yeah.
I always I had a goal. I want to sell whatever, $5 million.
Mhm.
But there was no like plan. It was just, I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to make a lot of phone calls. Like there was no specific, you know,
Mhm.
target that I had to do daily. And you hear all the successful people talking. Every book that talks about the secrets, and everyone's all saying the same thing. It's all
Mhm. Yeah.
basketball coaches. They all say the same thing.
Yeah.
Stack your
Like
whatever,
Shaka.
stack the bricks. Yeah.
Shaka.
Yeah.
He's got all the sayings, man.
Yeah.
I love listening to him.
That's why I wore the Marquette
I
hoodie
know.
today.
I know. I have a Marquette hat back here somewhere I can put on.
That's a good transition into the Marquette into the boys. So
Yeah.
they're on a roll. I look forward to seeing what they do in the postseason this year.
I don't, frankly, I would love to see them win the rest of their games. I can't see them beating Connecticut twice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're
UConn
tough.
is. Yeah.
And frankly, don't even look past this weekend because I don't feel like if they have an extended period of time off, the first half shooting is never good.
No.
So especially on the road. Thankfully, they're at home this weekend, and Soriano was a pain in the ass for our guys.
Yep.
He's a rebounding machine. So the Big East is tough. I'd like to see them make a deep run in the tournament. I frankly don't care if they win it. They did that last year.
Yep.
I just want to see them get to the Sweet 16 or better because
Yep.
I think when they're all playing well,
they've shown it.
Yeah, they can beat anybody. I mean, they boat raced Kansas. I mean,
yep. That's what I mean. I mean,
yeah.
that's one of the biggest wins in program. In the program,
Yeah.
Kansas is a massive, obviously blue blood.
Yeah.
And that was cool.
That wasn't even a game. That was not a game.
No, they were winning the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, at one point, I think it was like 32 points. I mean, it was not even close.
Yeah.
And when they're shooting well, and frankly, I'm encouraged that Cam shot the way he did last week because he has not been shooting the way he has the last several years.
No, it was nice to see him again. Well, he started off the year strong, but he went on a little hiatus there. I'm waiting to see the NIL partnership with Fairchild and a Marquette athlete.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is interesting seeing all just like the types of companies that get into that, and it works for some and it makes no sense for others, but it is some of the commercials that we're seeing now are I don't know if they're supposed to be bad on purpose, but some of them are pretty silly.
Pretty bad. Yeah, that whole thing is I like the way Marquette's doing it. Come to Marquette and you'll get NIL money to stay, basically. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to ruin college football.
Yeah.
But I think basketball, because there's only one ball and 5 guys on the court, you get a team that wants to stay together. I don't think it's going to be quite as drastic there, but and I think Shaka and Marquette is Shaka recruits a certain kid,
Mm-hmm.
He may get lucky every once in a while and get a top 10 kid, but he's going to recruit that kid that's in the top 50 to 150. So he's not competing with the Kansas, the North Carolinas, the Dukes and all that stuff regularly. He does some, but keep them together, let them play together for 3 years, develop them. Like, think about how Tyler Kolek looked when he first showed up.
Yeah.
I know he had a little rough patch, middle of the year, but he's playing like Tyler Kolek again.
Right.
And frankly, I like the way we're playing right now. I'd rather be Marquette right now than the way Wisconsin's playing.
Yeah. No, you know how we all feel about Wisconsin.
I think they're going to be okay. I think they'll be okay. They'll come back. But yeah, I wish Marquette would have beat Wisconsin this year because I had all kinds of shit talked. Oops,
yeah.
You can't say that.
We can say whatever we want here.
I had all kinds of smack talk to me after that game, but just didn't play well. The Kohl Center is a tough place to play, and
we went 2-1.
Wisconsin plays hard. They do.
Yeah. We went 2-1 against Wisconsin. We also got smacked at the Kohl Center. So I put up a 0 nugget.
Really?
That was not a good game. Fouled out. It was not a good showing. So
just motivated.
2-1. Yeah, 2-1.
That's good. I'll take that. Yeah. I felt like we went on a pretty good run. They've got us the last couple of times.
Yeah.
Who was the big center that they had? He was a freshman, or maybe he was a forward. He was a freshman 4 years ago. Right with what it was on one of Wojo's teams where he had the tip in at the end.
Oh yeah, that was. Oh man, I know.
Good.
Yeah,
he was good.
Yeah,
is he in the NBA right now?
He's playing for the. I think he plays for the Bulls D League.
Okay.
I don't know why I'm blanking. I'm always like that. I can't remember things. Getting old.
Well, it's too much of this. You don't want to have that next to your ear. It's
I know.
I
know. I'm trying the wired connection instead.
Yeah.
Hey, jumping back to sales. This was a question that since all my notes disappeared, popped back into my head.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen a lot of successful salespeople. You've seen a lot of people that have tried. Let's say.
Mm-hmm.
What are the most common traits and/or skills in the elite salespeople?
Not afraid to fail is certainly, I would say, number one. Number two, you got to have perseverance because it's not going to happen right away. I mean, understand if you're a new sales guy in our industry, it doesn't matter what you're selling, and it could be, a lot of your products, a lot of ours. You're a new guy showing up, and
Mm-hmm.
there's 50 other guys that have come in, 3 or 4 times before,
Yep.
So you got to stick with it. I would say the guys that do really well in this they're up early. I mean, they catch customers before they get it into their day. I'd say the two biggest things is you cannot be afraid to fail. You keep trying, keep taking swings, and you just got to understand it isn't going to happen right away.
Yeah. The one thing that I learned that I still remember to this day is from Dan V. We're out making cold calls, and we have some deals that we've quoted, and I think we had just lost a deal, and I was pissed off, and he was just like, all right, let's move on. But it was his saying was basically for every 9 no's, there's a yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so simple, but you're shifting the mindset of like, damn, like I just lost.
Yeah.
Like poor me, pitiful me, to like, all right, I just need 2 more no's so I can get to my yes.
Yeah.
And it's just a complete shift of the way that I thought, and I haven't looked back since.
And I think it's even more so that way. It's interesting that Dan V felt that way. I guess the lessons apply whether it's face-to-face calls or phone calls and emails, whatever. Yeah. It becomes, I think, increasingly more difficult. It's not as difficult as it was in 2020 or 2021 to get face-to-face meetings, know? And so it's volume of phone calls, volume of, how can I touch this customer, and what can you do that's different? You're going to get a lot of no's that way because there's really no personal connection.
Yep.
For a while, people were trying to say that Teams and things like this is that substitute. It's not.
No, it's not.
So if I always will say face-to-face meetings I prefer to anything.
Yep.
This is a little better than a phone call, but you're going to get a lot of no's to get to a yes when it comes to, emails and phone calls, but you're going to get a yes if you keep taking the swings, know?
No, and it is a numbers game.
Yeah.
You have to do way more than you think, especially when you're first getting into it.
Yeah.
And it's got to be the repetitive every day. It can't just be, because what I used to do is like, okay, I don't have anything in my pipeline. I'm going to make literally 60 phone calls today to all like actual phone calls where I'm talking to people. Like that's not sustainable. If you do 10 to 15 a day or whatever the number is, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's sustainable if you have nothing in your funnel, but once your funnel starts filling up, it becomes, but then it's a third thing. It just dawned on me. Obviously you've got to be not afraid to fail. You got to have perseverance, but you have to have discipline.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm going to make this from this hour of the day. I'm going to make my 15 calls, or these 2 hours of the day. I'm going to make this 2 hours. I'm going to work on quotes. You've got to get into a routine. I think you can be overwhelmed pretty easily.
Yeah. It makes things more, it does make things easy when you have discipline, but that doesn't mean it's easy. I think one of our core values is count on discipline, because you can't rely on motivation all the time. And I can't remember if that was a Jocko or one of the guys, like one of those guys. We got
sounds like Jocko. Yeah.
Nothing that I have is original to me. I just take things that I think are really cool.
Me too. Yeah, I already
count on
I'm a remora.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even know what that meant. So thanks for teaching me.
Remora is that fish that attaches to sharks. And when the sharks eat stuff, then they're like, oh, there's all this extra food. I'll eat it.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I learned something new today. Thank you for that.
I've always said that, one of my favorite groups is Hall & Oates. Daryl Hall carried that. It could have been just Daryl Hall.
Yeah.
All Oates had going for him is a mustache.
Yeah, that was before me, Van.
Well, so, I understand, but I always call
I'm nodding my head.
John Oates. Yeah. He was a remora.
Yep.
Because he just basically was attached to Daryl Hall. Now they're actually in a lawsuit because, anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, no, a lot of questions. It was awesome talking. I'm glad you came on. I know.
Anytime, man.
Yeah.
Anytime.
No, and I think there's going to be other. I mean, if they think anybody else would be a fit. I mean, at the end of the day, like I want to have conversations with good people in our industry, and like if I can learn something, that means somebody else can as well. And
well,